Over the years, companies and developers have created some of their most beloved and famous fighting games through external IPs and characters, like for example, the iconic Marvel vs. Capcom series, and some more modern takes like Dragon Ball FighterZ, which you could argue is the last big IP fighting game. But out there, in the world of media in general, there are still so many great intellectual properties that have never gotten a fighting game and they are perfect for one. Or maybe they have, a 30-year-old game that is bad as hell. So in this video, we're going to be discussing 5 IPs that deserve to have a fighting game in the near future. And the fundamental rules for this type of video and to choose the IPs in this list is that 1, of course, they have either never gotten a fighting game in the past, or 2, they have a really old fighting game around 20 to 30 years old, or 3, they have gotten a fighting game but it's either a really low quality one that never got a big audience, or 2, it's an indie game, because we are talking in this video particularly about AAA fighting games at the level of games like Tekken 8, Street Fighter 6 and more. And of course, let me know in the comments which IP that you love deserves to have a fighting game and has never gotten one, and also if you want to see part 2 of this type of video. And now let's get into the list. And let's travel into a galaxy far, far away, because we are gonna kick off this list with Star Wars, one of the top 5 highest grossing IPs of all time, and with so many good and bad video games over the years, it's kind of impressive that we have never gotten a big AAA fighting game from the Star Wars franchise. And well, Star Wars does have a fighting game, but it is considered by many as one of the worst fighting games of all time, so it for sure deserves to be in this list, being an IP that has everything to have a good fighting game. It has the combat, the fighting mechanics that you need, the iconic characters, so it is really impressive that we still don't have a good big Star Wars fighting game that is a AAA project with a high budget. And I think that in the future it would make also a ton of sense to make one because of the absence of the Soul Calibur franchise. We all know that Soul Calibur after 6 has basically been on a long hiatus, and the chances of SC coming back are very low. I think that it's almost 0, which is very sad, but at least we can maybe hope that it leaves some space open to make a new weapon-based 3D fighter around the Star Wars franchise. And I'm pretty confident that many people would be really happy both in and out of the fighting game community to get a new Star Wars fighting game. And if I had a gun pointed to my head and I basically had to choose which developers could make a weapon-based 3D fighting game for the Star Wars IP, I gotta say either Bandai because of Soul Calibur and Tekken, or of course Sega because of Virtua Fighter. I'm not sure if any of those two would actually want to take in such a challenge, because if you want to make a Star Wars IP fighting game, it needs to be big, it needs to be the next big thing in comparison to maybe other fighting games. So it would be a big challenge for the industry and either the company or developer that is trying to make the game, like what is happening with Marvel Talk-On and how Arxis said publicly that it is an immense challenge to them as a company. So I don't know if it's even likely, but we can dream about a future Star Wars fighting game. And now we move into the second IP in this list, which is arguably one of the biggest franchises in the RPG genre ever, and it is Final Fantasy from Square Enix. And I think that many people in the fighting game community would be really happy if Final Fantasy got a traditional fighting game, because I can see this sort of, like Venn diagram in the fighting game community, that many people that love fighting games also love the Final Fantasy series and RPGs. So I think that it would be a great idea to make either a 2D or 3D fighting game with Final Fantasy characters. And many people wanted Tifa to be in Tekken because of how well she would fit on a fighting game, and there are many characters inside Final Fantasy, not only on FF7, that would fit on a fighting game really well. You have everything, the characters, the popularity, and Final Fantasy of course is a series that has actually never gotten a traditional fighting game before. We have the Dissidia series, which is this sort of like 3D arena fighters, but that is not a traditional FG. We're talking about 2D or 3D competitive traditional fighting game, and the Final Fantasy franchise has never gotten one. So maybe it is finally time for Square Enix to get things going, talk to some fighting game developers, and see if anyone is interested in making a traditional Final Fantasy fighting game.
Then do the damn job!
And well, when it comes to who could make a great Final Fantasy fighting game, who could be the developer and company behind it, I think that you just need Square Enix and a partnership. You don't really need to externalize the whole process. You just need that Square is, interested in making something like this, because I believe they could make a ton of money with it, and then basically make a good partnership with a famous fighting game developer. They could make it with anything, with Arxis, with Capcom, with even Bandai, or even Sega, the same ones that I basically suggested for the Star Wars weapon-based 3D fighting game, because you could also make a 3D fighting game with Final Fantasy characters. I would prefer it to be 2D. I don't know why exactly, but I think that it would be much more cooler. But I truly believe that you just need Square to be able to open up to a partnership with a big fighting game developer and you can get a good game. So let's hope that in the future we can maybe see Square and some other company get together and make an amazing Final Fantasy fighting game. And now we move into the third IP in this list, and I'm gonna talk about it more like a general topic or theme, because it's hard to only choose one IP of this, and it's going to be, mechas. I think that the biggest intellectual property around mechas is Gundam, arguably, and in the West it's maybe like Transformers. I'm not super sure about it, but I do believe that the mecha theme deserves a fighting game, and Iron Saga Versus actually has shown us the potential that a mecha-based fighting game can have, which is a new indie fighting game that was released some months ago. And in this video, of course, we are talking about AAA fighting games with high budgets, so that's why we are still choosing, the mecha theme and Gundam and Transformers, for example, for a new fighting game, because Iron Saga is a smaller, lower budget fighting game, but I would still recommend it a lot if you want to play a Gundam-based fighting game. This is maybe the best one that you have out there at the moment. It has great gameplay, very decent visuals, and it is very fun to play. So, of course, huge shout out to Iron Saga Versus and its developers in this video, and I hope that they can actually inspire the industry to make a huge fighting game around Gundams, Transformers, or any mecha out there. And now, from what I understand and I'm aware of, Bandai Namco actually owns Gundam, so it would technically be relatively easy for Bandai if they have the idea and are willing to make, a Gundam-based AAA fighting game, to do it, because they have access to all the licensing with the characters and everything. So I actually believe that this is more possible than maybe we can even imagine, because we don't have like a mecha Gundam-based fighting game in our collective minds as a community maybe, but maybe, just maybe, it's more possible than we are actually thinking. So in the future, we can hope for a new Gundam-based fighting game. Just imagine how hype and amazing it would be in the near future if, for example, we get a mecha fighting game based on Gundam with the level of budget and visuals that the new Mecha Break game has. It would be absolutely amazing. And now we move into the last section of the video, and I'm actually going to mix the last two IPs on one big part. And why is that exactly? Because I feel like, one, these two IPs were actually like consumed by a very similar audience in the same moment in time, so I feel like I'm appealing to the same people with both of these things, and because both of them are animation based, and they are going to be, as you're seeing on the screen, Avatar, The Last Airbender, and Ben 10. And I am really convinced that with both of these IPs you could make amazing fighting games. With Ben 10 you have all the Omnitrix transformations, all the enemies from the series, so you would probably have like a 50 character roster in a Ben 10 fighting game. It would be really fun and super unique, so I think that it deserves one in the future if the series ever, of course, gets to be big again, because this series has been kind of like on a hiatus for a long time. And then you also have the Avatar The Last Airbender case, which is also amazing. Like, you have all these characters that use different sort of like elemental powers, and they kind of like use them in a different way that is very unique depending on the character and how they wield their elemental power specifically. So I think that if you want to make some animation based fighting games, this would be really good options if you're going for something that is not really obvious. Because as you maybe have become aware during this video, I purposely left some huge IPs off the list to make another part 2, because I love this sort of topics. And let me know in the comments if you want to see a part 2 of IPs that deserve a fighting game, because I have a long list of options. So I hope that you enjoyed the video. Leave a like and subscribe if you can, and see you on the next video, guys.